What's good, Hot State? We are broadcasting live from the Slapp studio in Chinatown, Hawaii, where the streets and the arts meet. We got DJ Drum on the turntables. We got Mike and Apollo behind the lens. I'm your host, James Westbrook, and you're tuned in to Slapp Radio, the sight and sound of Hawaii. To join us today, we have a very inspiring guest. Born and raised in Makaha, west side of the island. Her journey started when she was 14. She got addicted to meth for 15 years, incarcerated for 7.5 years, led a long life of crime. She managed to get clean, and now would be about 4 years. Started speaking to many schools and programs. Started companies like So Fresh meal preps, and In Her Beauty, vegan skincare. She's also a singer and songwriter. And joining us today, we have Terann Pavao. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So we just want to get started with, how did it all get started?
So for me, my story started when I was 14. I was actually at a Waianae High School graduation. And that night, I jumped into a car with one of my classmates and his friend who was much older. He was in his mid-30s. He was like older than my dad at the time.
Okay.
And we went for a ride. We went to the Taco Bell drive-thru, and the older guy actually had held someone gunpoint in the drive-thru and robbed someone. And I witnessed that for the first time in my life. And seeing that kind of it made me like, I was in shock, and I was like, wow, I want to be like that. I want to rob people and take people's money. You know, I thought it was cool. At the time, I was still young, you know. I was only 14, like I said. So I started looking up to them. You know, I started looking up to them and wanted to be like them and do what they do, and because I thought that was cool. And so later on that night, they were smoking something and passing a pipe back and forth. And I just remember that I was sitting in the back seat of the car watching them pass a pipe back and forth and blowing clouds, and I was asking them to try. And I kept begging them, like, come on, I want to try. And at first they were like, no, this is not, he don't want to try this, you know. And I was like, no, I want to try, you know. And it was just my curiosity that basically led me to try for the first time. And so when they did let me try, the high itself was so extreme. It was just hard to explain. Like, it's something I've never felt, you know. You feel like you're Superman when you take that hit. And immediately I became addicted, you know. And later on that night, we went to the older guy's property. He had an abandoned bus up there next to a shack where he lived. And what he did was he used to use that bus as like a hangout for people to smoke drugs. So he'd bring his friends over there, and we were all smoking drugs there on the bus. And my classmate said, oh, I'm gonna go to the store. I'm gonna run to the store and come back. And he never came back. So that night he held me hostage for 12 days. That's when he raped me, he beat me, he kept me there for 12 days. And at that age of 14, I went from like wanting to follow these people and looking up to these people because I thought they were cool, to it becoming my worst nightmare, you know.
So when you say drugs, you were talking about crystal meth in particular, yeah?
Yeah.
So he held you hostage against your will, basically.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't let you out. He wouldn't let you talk to anybody.
No. The only time I could step off the bus was to use the water hose to like rinse off, but I had to do it in front of him, and he would stand right there. The water hose was like hooked up to the fence right outside of the window of the bus. And so, that's like pretty much the only time I would be able, and I would have to like use the bathroom or something. But when he would feed me on the bus, keep me there, and he just had like this mattress in the middle of the bus, and that's where I stayed for all those days.
So all those days he was feeding you meth the whole time?
Meth, but he put sleeping pills as well. He gave me sleeping pills for me to like just knock out. Yeah. So
how did you get out of that situation?
So when I was up, he eventually fell asleep, and when he did, that's when I made my escape to go and run away.
Now this whole time his family was in the main house.
So it wasn't even a real house. It was like a shack. It was like a broken down shack, and he had a baby's mom and two sons, and they were really young, you know. So I just remember them running around at the time and playing in the yard, and me looking at them, and like they noticed I was there and stuff, but I think they were just used to it, you know. They used to seeing different people there, and so it wasn't nothing to them, you know.
So you think you're not the only one?
Oh, I know for a fact. I did my research later on, and just recently too. Yeah, I was not the first, and I'm still not even the last.
So you're saying it's still going on to this day?
So he changed his life But it's happening in a different way today.
I see.
Yeah, he's just doing it sober.
So you managed to escape while he was sleeping.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
Oh, I ran away to a friend's house. Like, that's probably like halfway down the road. Yeah, and then I just started living house to house, friends' houses off the streets. Plus, to my family, like, I didn't want to give them that opportunity to say, see, I told you so. You see, when you hang with people like that, you know, I didn't want to give them the opportunity to say that they're right. You know, I knew that I needed help. I knew that I got myself into a really messed up situation, but I didn't want to, like, go to them for help. And plus, I was afraid of him, you know, like, after seeing what he did to the guy in the drive-thru, I didn't want to tell my family, and then my family come for revenge and then they get hurt. So really, I just sat on that secret my whole life. You know, I didn't want to tell nobody. I just pretended like it never happened and just dealt with it.
So I'm assuming the whole time your family's trying to reach out to you.
So at that time, I was kind of like the type where I would always run away from home or like sleep at friends' houses. So it wasn't like they weren't aware of what was happening. But eventually, as time went on and I could no longer hide my addiction, I changed as a person. I changed, like, the way I looked. I lost weight. Everything I did, the way I acted, the people I was with, it was just, they eventually learned, like, oh my gosh, she's on drugs.
So of course that led to a life of crime.
Yeah. So by 15, so after I got away from that, everyone now that I knew, everyone I was affiliated with was drug users, drug dealers, criminals, anybody in that type of scene. And I eventually got into another relationship that was actually with the older man, and he was a carpenter or a roofer, and he was a roofer, and he used to take me, when he used to go to work, he used to lock me inside his room, and his room never had no windows. There was just a small bathroom, and he used to lock me. There was 2 deadbolt locks on the outside of his door, and I remember him just telling his 2 nephews, make sure you guys feed her at lunch, you know. And so then when lunchtime would come, they would put 2 breads on a napkin. One would have peanut butter, one would have jelly, and they would slide the napkin under the door just enough so I could pull it, you know, through, and that's what I would eat. And this went on for like a year and a half. You know, he would beat me constantly, and he just would keep me locked up in there.
So this was another person that basically held you hostage again against your will, and in a room where you would just have to take it. Yeah. And it seems like the family understood and knew what was happening. They
knew. They just didn't really care, because I mean, he does his own thing. Everyone was afraid of him because he carries gun, he would shoot, he was like trigger happy, he would use it a lot, so everybody was afraid of him. So, and he was a big time drug dealer, so everyone in the family would get the drugs from him, so they didn't want to tell him nothing or try and correct him, you know. They're like, well, we got to get our drugs from him, so just let it go, you know. And then it wasn't until he got arrested for shooting at some guys at the beach park, and that's when he went to prison. So I mean, that's when I was freed of that. But I mean, during that time, I tried to run away one time. I tried to kill myself one time. And when I tried running away, he actually came to my uncle's house. He was on a dirt bike, and he came and he told me, if you don't come outside and get on this bike and leave with me, he said, I'm going to put a bullet in your uncle's head. And at that time, my uncle was like in his early 70s. And I was like, please, just leave me alone, you know, like, I don't want to talk to you, please just stop. And then he was like, no, you come outside that house and get on the bike. And he's like, we're going, or I'm going to come in there and I'm gonna put a bullet in his head. And so of course, like anybody else would do, I just went with him, you know. Mm-hmm. And it was a never ending cycle, you know. I tried jumping out the car when it was moving, and it was just crazy, you know. I tried killing myself. And one time so I took like a whole bunch of pills. I took like 7 bottles. There was like everything from Oxys to Vicodin to Advil to just everything, his medicine. It was just, I took whatever I could find. And I remember waking up in the hospital, and they had me hooked up to all of these IVs, and they pumped my stomach. They were trying to rehydrate my body. And I remember waking up and just being so upset and so mad and yelling at the doctors, like, why the fuck did you guys save me? Mm-hmm. Like, why did you guys stop it? Like, I was doing something. Like, I didn't want to be here, you know. And at that time in my life, I mean, after what happened to me at 14, and then getting myself into that situation with my, you know, that next thing, at that time in my life, there was nothing I wanted to stay alive for.
And how old were you at the time? Because from 14, you got abducted.
I was about 16.
Okay, so not just a couple of years afterwards.
Yeah, and it was like I changed as a person from that situation at 14. I was no longer a child, most definitely. I was no longer living. I was basically surviving, you know. And I was in such a dark place. Not only that, but keeping that secret to myself,
of course,
only added, you know, it made me want to stay numb. And that's why I kept using drugs. I didn't want to remember what happened. I didn't want to remember the feeling of being dirty, you know, or the feelings of just what happened. So I just would keep using just because I wanted to stay numb. You know, it was easier to just have no feeling at all. And that's why I just kept doing what I was doing.
And this was happening while you were in Makaha side?
Waianae, yeah.
Waianae side, yeah. And how long was that relationship with the carpenter? Yes.
Oh, like a year and a half.
Year and a half?
Yeah, it was a year and a half of misery, straight up.
So after he ended up getting arrested and you ended up leaving that relationship, what was your next move?
I was free from that, but so now I'm a full-blown ice addict, and everyone I'm affiliated with is some part of that life, you know, in that drug life. And I became a career criminal. Everything from robbing stores, robbing drug dealers, robbing houses, stealing cars, you know, dealing drugs, everything. Every type of crime I could get into is what my life became, you know. I got arrested 44 times in my life. From the age of like 16, I started getting arrested, and to this day I was arrested 44 times. I did 7.5 years in prison, and it was a blessing, to be honest. When I finally got arrested the last time to go in and get sentenced, and I had to go in and do my time, that saved my life. Like,
was that about the time you became clean?
No, it was definitely not. It was before I even went in. So when I got arrested to do my time, it saved me. Like, at that point in time, I was living in like stolen cars. I was living on the streets, sleeping at people's houses, I was homeless, really, going from here to there. And I mean, there were times when I'll be driving a stolen car, and the car is so hot, you know, because the cops is looking for it, and I'd have to pull it over so I could walk and get out of it, you know. And I just would remember times when I'd walk down a street late at night, have nowhere to go, no one to call, nobody who cares, and I would just walk in, and I would walk into someone's yard and sit on their grass, use their water hose to shower, and then I would like fall asleep and wake up the next day in the afternoon and be like sunburnt, practically drowning because I slept in the water in the plant, you know, on the grass. And I would wake up and just think like, damn, when is my life ever gonna get better? You know, like.
Well, we really want to get into the portion where you started getting clean, but before we get into that, we're gonna go ahead and take a break right now. Once again, we got DJ Drum on the turntables. We got Mike and Apollo behind the lens. We got Terann with us telling her story. So we're gonna take a break right now. We'll be right back with it. Let's go, Slapp Radio. So can you explain to us a little bit about some of the crime that you have done? Because I know you talked about a little bit about robbing.
Yeah. So I need to explain first, like, when you use meth, for those who don't understand or have never experienced it, they need to know, like, when you take that hit and you blow it out for the first time, you feel like Superman.
Okay.
And while blowing out the hit, you blow out your morals, you blow out your values, you blow out all the things that you care about, your priorities, everything that's important becomes invalid and becomes unimportant.
Instantly.
And so I started doing the craziest things. Like, a lot of people say, how can someone steal from their family? How can they steal money from their grandma? Or how can they do this or that? It's because that drug strips you of your morals. It strips you of your values and everything that's good. So for me, when I would use when I was smoking ice, like, I was doing crazy things, everything from stealing cars, robbing houses, and I remember, you know, doing home invasions and like breaking into people's houses, especially like drug dealers, you know. and you're addicted to this adrenaline that it gives you, you know. And so I got busted for a robbery. I got busted for like 4 or 5 UCPVs, dealing drugs, identity theft, promotion, you know, theft, assault, and just so much. Like the list goes on and on and on, you know. And it became my normal life. That was my life, you know. I was to the point where my family didn't want nothing to do with me because they were ashamed of me. Like, I pretty much was a disappointment, you know. They couldn't understand why I chose that route. And on top of that, I was keeping that secret from everyone.
That you were on meth?
I tried to, but they knew, but of what had happened to me. That was why I wanted to stay numb.
I see. So you didn't tell any of your family members?
Not till this past year.
That you were abducted? Wow. So just this past year?
Yep. I never told them till I was 32. Till I was 32.
And this happened when you were 14?
14.
So I'm sure they were shocked.
Oh, so shocked. So shocked.
Does your family know who the person was? I mean, because like we were talking about earlier,
I never told them.
Makaha Waianae side is a very small community.
To be honest, it took me my whole life to get past it, and I don't want to open up a new wound for them and have to heal from it. You know, I explained to them what happened and like, let's move on from it.
So your mindset while under the influence was to get basically a fix for the next pickup?
Stay numb. Just stay numb. Stay high, stay numb, continue to get money. You know, we don't care who we hurt, who you do wrong, who you whatever. Like, it's just as long as you're continuing to stay high, because that drug, like I said, it numbs you. It numbs you. Everything that hurt me when it happened, I couldn't feel it when I use drugs, you know. And that's the thing that keeps people stuck forever, because people who are going through all of this pain in their life, they use that drug because you forget about it all. You know, you're about your divorce, or about the death in your family, or about the loss of your child, or about, you know, something. You forget about it all when you're on that drug, and that's what it did for me. And so for me, I stayed on that drug for 15 years until the age of 29. And so that's my practically half my life, you know, and that's years I can't get back. Of course. And so what happened was, how I got sober was, everyone around me started dying. Like, so much people started dying, whether from overdoses or... So they were on meth as well? Yes. So I didn't have normal friends. Like, everyone in my circle, or even in my space, was always just either a drug user, drug dealer, a criminal, someone who's addicted. And that's the only people I'd affiliate with. So what happened was, when it came to a certain point, everyone was dying, either going to prison or dying. And some was like dying of overdoses, someone's dying of like shooting up and getting infections, some was heart problems, someone's getting beaten up from like a drug deal gone bad. You know, one of my ex-boyfriends, he got stabbed like 40 times in the tattoo shop for a drug deal gone bad. And that was like 2 hours before we were supposed to go out to the movies. And then my next boyfriend, he got shot in the face. He lost his eye. He's still to this day wearing a fake eye. So people around me started getting shot, killed, stabbed, you know, arrested, dying, sick, you know, all of these things. And so I started losing people. And it was so close to home that I started to realize, like, damn, I'm next. I think I'm next, you know. And so what happened was, my youngest brother, his name was Mackenzie, he was 20 years old, and it was only 2 weeks before his 21st birthday. He went out to a rave with his friends, and he wasn't a drug user ever. He wasn't a bad kid. He was a good kid. And 2 weeks before his birthday, he went with them to a rave, and they were drinking alcohol, and one of his friends had given him a pill, and he took that pill, and that pill stopped his heart, and he died immediately. And so my brother was only 20 years old, and when that happened, I saw all the pain and the sadness and the darkness that it caused when we lost him to my whole family. Like, my mom, my stepdad, like, everyone was just so broken, you know. It, like, my family was practically falling apart after that. And I seen that, and just the sadness I had to see on their face every single day, like, it made me realize I did not want to have anything to do with drugs, you know. Like, it was happening so often, people were dying.
Were you with your family at the time?
No, I actually didn't even know he died until like 3 days after he died. My mom was trying to get a hold of me, but you know what the type of person I am in my addiction? I ignore the people that loves me.
How did they get in contact with you?
They were blowing up my phone for days straight. And
so then you did have a form of communication.
I did. And when I would see my mom, I put it down, ignore. like, oh God, it's my mom, you know. And that's because the drug keeps you numb. You no longer care about what you should care about. You know, the people who love you no longer matter, really, you know, because the drug, whenever someone is addicted, here's something that everyone needs to understand. People who are in love with drug addicts or have a relationship, have kids, a family member, what they need to understand is, no matter how much, because don't get me wrong, I love my family, but no matter how much you love them, if they're addicted to drugs, you're gonna always come second. You always gonna lose when it comes to whether it's you or the drug. You know what I mean? Like, I loved my mom with all of me, but she was always second to the drug, no matter what. You know? And so that's why I didn't find out my brother died until 3 days after he was already dead. And that was like, it opened my eyes. When that happened, I realized, like, damn, I don't even want to touch this shit no more. Like, I don't want to use drugs no more. Like, I didn't want nothing to do with it. Like, it ruins everything, you know. And it stole my brother. It stole everything from me. It stole all these people that I know. It stole the people I love. It stole all those years from me, you know. And I got to that point where I was so sick and tired of being around these people in the game that could care less if I died. They could care less if I got hit by a bus, or if I got sick, or if I got arrested and was going to prison. Nobody in the game cares about you. That's one thing that these kids need to learn, as they don't have friends in the streets.
Were the people that you were picking up with, are they some people that you grew up with?
No, I didn't grow up with them. It was just people I knew from the streets.
I see. Where were you when you got the news?
Kalihi. I was at a drug house in Kalihi. Yep.
And so that's your turning point?
So when that happened, I was just devastated. Like, everyone was at the hospital, you know, they had to identify his body, all of that stuff. And my mom was like, why wouldn't you answer? Like, why would you not answer all these days? Like, I told you 911, I left messages. And then when I realized why she was calling so much, I was like, damn, like, that's so, like, it's like it just, my heart dropped, you know. And I made a decision at that very point, after like a week after I found out he died. I had to wash my hands of everything. Like, I was like, I didn't want to use drugs, not to make money, not to get high, not to stay numb. Like, I was so sick of how much it stole from my life. You know, not only the years, but the people, and then the pain that it causes. Like, I was just so sick of it. I couldn't take it anymore, you know. And I remember going to my house and smashing.
House where? What house was this?
So I was actually just living in a house in Kalihi, across of a game room at this time. And I remember going to the house and smashing all the pipes I had, throwing away everything that had to do with my drug life. Every type of paraphernalia, whether it be lighters, torches, scrapers, baggies, coolers, everything, like pipes. I just was smashing everything, because I was like literally at a point of desperation in my life where I was like, I'm so sick of this evil drug that just held me captive for so long. Like, I wanted to get rid of it. And so I forced myself to get rid of it. And so I went, and every time people would come, I would tell them, I don't do this no more, I quit. And at first everybody thought I was joking. Like, they thought it was like the dumbest shit ever. Like, they were like, nah, she ain't never gonna quit, she always gonna be chronic, for real. And then after I was clean for like a few weeks, they're like, what, she's clean for 2 weeks? Anybody can do that. And then people would always, so they were just started to say things like spit dirt on my name and say I'm gonna always, you know, be a chronic, or I'm gonna never be clean. And in my head, I use all of that all the shade that they throw on my name, I would use that as fuel for my fire. I would keep my fire burning and say, okay, all of you that want to talk your shit, when I see you a year from now or whatever, I'm gonna still be clean, and you still probably gonna be using, and then I'm gonna be able to say, see, I told you so. You know. And so go keep talking all your shit, because it was a confirmation that, yeah, none of you were my friends from the gate.
So where did you go after you basically quit the drugs?
So I actually I rented a vacation rental for 2 weeks up in the Big Island, because I needed to get away. Okay. And so I that's where, like, I detoxed. I sobered. Like, I literally slept for like weeks up there.
By yourself?
Me and a friend that was up there living on the island, but I literally just slept and detoxed and ate and slept and just got sober. And I did that on purpose, because I knew that it would be harder for me to do out of my house, because people would constantly come to smoke, to buy something, to get something, to kick it, you know, sell something. Like, people would come all the time. And so I purposely removed myself from that location because I knew that if I was serious about getting sober, I needed to do it somewhere else. And I didn't want to put myself in no detox. I didn't want to put myself in no program. I didn't want none of that shit, because I came to that point of realizing I didn't want it no more. And that's one thing people always ask: how can I help get somebody clean? What can I tell them? You can't tell them nothing. They need to come and realize that for themselves.
So it was your own realization and your own motivation to get clean after your brother has passed. Rest in peace, by the way.
Thank you.
For you basically to say, I'm done, and make the steps.
An addict needs to get sick and tired of his own shit. You know, he needs to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. That life is miserable.
So this was all before you got incarcerated?
No, this is after.
After you got incarcerated? Okay. So I want to talk about how when you got incarcerated, how maybe that helped you out. And we're going to take a break right now. And, you know, we definitely want to hear a little bit more about how you got sober, because I'm sure a lot of people want to know about how you kicked in addiction for 15 years. So before we go, you know, we got Slapp Radio right now. We got DJ Drama on the turntables. We got Mike and Apollo right behind the lens. Terann Pavao in the studio right now. Let's go. I'm your host, James Westbrook.
Along the coast.
Telling her story. So we kind of left off as where you were talking about how you were incarcerated, or you were about to be incarcerated. So tell us a little bit about that.
So at this point in time, I was on the run. I was actually Hawaii's most wanted at the time. I was on the run. I was actually wanted for robbery and kidnapping and assault. And actually I kidnapped a girl in a car, assaulted her and took everything from her, stripped her naked and took her car and her money and everything. And they I left the girl in that street, and I ended up, the cops were looking for me. So on top of all my other charges I was wanted for, they ended up putting me on Hawaii's most wanted. So at this time I was running it crazy on the streets, you know, always watching my back, you know, staying, like, all the cops were always out looking for me. So I was reckless. I didn't have nothing to lose, you know, nothing to do good for, you know. I'm fully addicted. So when this happened and I got arrested, I went to prison. It was a blessing. It was a blessing for me to go to prison.
And how old were you at this time?
It was 2009, I think. So, I don't know, do the math. I was like, what, about 11 years ago?
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 10. Yeah, it's about 11 years ago. So I think I was 21 or 22, around there. 22, maybe 23. Yeah. And so when I got arrested, it was basically saving me from myself. I was getting into like a lot of shootouts at the time with drug dealers, and even like with the cops, I got into a lot of high-speed chases. I was doing crazy stuff, like even like literally slingshotting businesses, like running into businesses, taking the cash registers. Like I was honestly trying to get killed from the cops, you know. And when I got arrested and put inside, it saved my life, to be honest. It saved my life. And so during that time and getting me off the street actually helped my family sleep better at night. My mom and everybody could sleep knowing I was somewhere safe.
Absolutely.
So when that happened, it was a blessing. But as we fast forward to the life in prison, you realize how much regrets you have once you sober up and once you're like no longer on that drug. I had a lot of regrets, like I regretted not making it to my mom's birthday, or not making it to Mother's Day, or to Christmas, or to missing this or missing that, not going to the beach when I could, you know. Like, you realize how many things you take for granted and how many things you no longer care about when you're on drugs. And so I remember doing my time with a lot of regrets. And then as time went on, people start dying, people you love. Like my uncle who raised me, the one like that raised me from when I was little, he died while I was in there, you know, and I couldn't even go to his funeral. And then my grandma had to get surgeries, my mom had to get a surgery, like everyone is getting sick. And then you start worrying, like, wow, I took them for granted while I was out there, and I surrounded myself with all these people who really could care less about me. And now that I'm here and my family's the only one here for me, and now I can't be there for them when I want to, you know. And you realize how much time you took for granted, how much time you didn't cherish them when you should have. And then it was like, when I got out, I knew, damn, they were the only ones there for me. Everyone who I thought were my friends in the game, in the addiction, weren't. No one was to be found, you know. So yeah, so today I started talking to kids. Like, this is how it happened when I got sober. I actually started working as a parking attendant. Okay, I worked at the airport.
You were sober at this time? When
I got out, just about 4 years ago.
Okay.
I got sober, right? After my brother died.
Right.
Remember I told you about that. So after my brother died, I got sober. This is after I already did my time and got out. When that happened, I cleaned up. Like, there's a lot of bad things too that come along with sobriety that you have to be strong enough to deal with. What's some of those bad things? So a lot of us, we gain weight. Like, I literally gained 75 pounds.
Is it because you're actually eating?
Yes.
At the time?
In your addiction, you're practically starving yourself and your body. I survived probably off Fruity Pebbles and 99-cent tacos my entire addiction, and it was rare that I would eat, but when I did, I would eat trash, you know. And so I was really, you know, skinny, and didn't take care of my body. Like, you know, back, you're starving. Your entire addiction, your body's starving. So when you do get sober after being an addict for 15 years, your body wants to eat everything, you know. And so I gained 75 pounds.
Wow.
And it was a hard pill to swallow, because, you know, we want to be sober, but we didn't want to be huge, you know. So we have to have a mindset who's ready to deal with that kind of thing, you know. And I lost a lot of self-esteem. I had no confidence or whatever, you know. I was still ashamed of myself because everyone knew that I was an addict,
right?
You know. Before, I couldn't walk into a store because I was ashamed, you know. I knew I looked different. I knew I looked suspicious, you know. I didn't have eyebrows, you know. I was ashamed of who I was for so long that now that I was changing and trying to do better, I had a lot to deal with. Like, you know, I'd have anxieties being around people. And so gaining weight was one of the problems. And then on top of that, being out of that life, you have to learn how to make money and how to do things legally, in a legal way, with a new circle of friends, which I had none. You know, I never had friends. All I knew was criminals and drug users and drug dealers. So I had to start from a point of being isolated, and I had to sacrifice having friends or acquaintances, and I had to be alone and suck it up.
Now, your family came back into the fold in this one.
Later on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they so at this point, when in my first year of sobriety, I remember feeling so alone so many times, like, damn, I really got nobody, because everyone I know is on drugs, and really they're all fake friends, you know. So I had to be alone. But you know what, one thing God promises is that when you close doors that are not good for you, He will open new doors.
So let me ask you this: you found religion helped you?
I always did believe in God. And because I'm gonna tell you this right now, there's so many situations where I should have been dead, and He always protected me somehow, by some miracle. I'm telling you, like, I mean, talking about situations like driving in a dark alley in reverse while being shot at from two different people, bullets flying through my windshield, and I'm shooting a gun, my passenger's shooting a gun, and we're going through this whole shootout, and it's pitch black, and I gotta save me, my passenger, and two guys in the back out of this situation and get us out of here. This is a narrow alley with all bushes on the side, and we survive. Like, everyone in my car is ducking down to the ground, and I'm driving, and it's pitch black, I can't even see nothing, and I survive. Like, there's so much situations like similar to that where I should have been dead. I should have been I should have been dead, you know. So I know God was always a part of protecting me. His hands is always watching over me, but I was never able to be okay, like, until now, you know.
So you ended up being a attendant at a parking structure.
Yeah, so when I got sober, I realized, okay, now I gotta get a job. So I started applying everywhere. And one thing too is being that I had no experience, being that I have a record, being all these things, everywhere I would apply, I would get shut down. I mean, talking about everywhere from Target to Sam's Club to T-Mobile, AT&T, like, everywhere I get shut down. Like, they will be like, oh, we want to hire you, you know, this and that. You're the definition of aloha spirit. Boom, right when they would get my record back, they'll be like, sorry, we can't move forward. You know, we're sorry about it. But it was very discouraging. Very discouraging. I finally got a job at the airport, and I worked for a parking company. as an attendant. And then I eventually started working with the homeless for IHS. I realized, like, when I worked with the homeless, I realized that that job was more fulfilling. It was like I got to relate to these people. I've been homeless before, you know. I just never lived at a shelter, you know, but I've been in their shoes. So everyone there loved me. The clients, not all the workers, but the clients, because they could relate with me. You know, a lot of them knew me from the streets, to be honest. And after I worked with the homeless, I ended up working with the elderly. I moved and I started doing caregiving. And working with the elderly, I was taking care of these people who couldn't take care of themselves, you know. And these jobs gave me so much fulfillment, because I realized, like, man, these people need me, you know. Like, so from there, one day my grandma had asked me to come and speak to her tutu group, which is like a group of grandparents who are stuck with their grandchildren because their kids are all on drugs or in prison. So when I went to that group and I talked to them, like, it was such a good impact on the grandparents, and they had so much good feedback and all these questions that I could, you know, help them understand, that it worked for me. I started speaking at different events, and then from there it was like at this and that, or a program or a school, and it just started, like, it was like a ripple effect from one thing to another. And it was crazy because it would target all types of groups. Like, it went from the elderly to foster kids to runaways to drug addicts to adult programs to, like, all kinds of stuff. And so the ripple effect of the movement became, like, intense. Like, there was so much opportunities that God was opening up for me, and I realized that this is exactly where he needed me to be. Because I said, okay, if this is not what he wanted me to do, he would not have had all of these people contact me. Like, he would not have opened up this door and that door and this door.
And the whole time you're still coping with your addiction?
By this time, I'm like, I realized, like, I was done for real. Like, I didn't want nothing to do with that drug no more. Like, I was completely done, past the point of, like, cravings and all that stuff. I was past that point. I was at the point of, like, already recovered from that, you know. And so now every time I speak and do, you know, speaking events, every time I see the impact that it made, like, for me, this is what was, so me, just FYI, all of these speaking stuffs, I don't get paid to do it.
You just kind of, you reach out to the schools?
Majority of them, yes. Okay. And then from there, once one school had me to speak, boom, they would tell their other friends at their other school. Then there was, like, a mass email sent between all the schools, you know, and then the schools would start contacting me, you know, and then drug programs would start contacting me, you know, Halikipa, or like AFY, or just different programming that they, you know, for teens. And this is, for me, I don't get paid to do these things. I do it all from my heart, on my free time. I literally stopped working to do this for free, and somehow still managed to pay my rent with no money being paid to me for this stuff. And this is my payment. When I spoke to a group of kids, and a kid came up to me after, and she said, I promise you that because of what you told me, I will never, ever, ever try drugs. She said, because of what you told me, I promise I'm never going to try drugs, not even once. At that moment in time, I knew that right there was exactly where God needed me to be.
Of course. So your goal, of course, is to reach the youth, or reach anybody who's struggling right now with addiction, and hearing your message and hearing your testimony, helping them either overcome or never try.
It's all of that and more. Sometimes it's like girls, like for me, when I was 14 and I thought looking up to these people was cool, you know, we don't even realize we put ourselves in these predicaments. I didn't think I was going to get raped or held hostage or beat or all those things, you know. And I try to bring awareness to even that as well, you know. And if I can save just one kid from taking the same path as me, then I've succeeded. Like, I know I'm not going to save it all. I know I'm not going to save them all. I know I'm not going to impact all of them, but I trust and believe I'm going to impact many, you know. And I've made an impact on many.
And so, of course, your goal is to reach as much people as possible, and you want to go ahead and fill auditoriums and speak about.
My goal is my goal first of all was to go to all the Hawaiian Islands and to go to like all the schools, programs, get all of that, but eventually go to the States, go nationally, you know, everywhere, go to New Zealand, go to here, go there, and speak about my story everywhere, because this happens everywhere.
Absolutely.
You know, everything about my story, whether it be what happened to me at 14, whether it be drugs, whether it be crime, it needs to be talked about, because a lot of people don't like to talk about it.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. A lot of people don't want to talk about it because of the sensitivity of it.
They're afraid to touch the subject, but really, because they sugarcoat everything, people think that it's not serious.
Yeah.
You know, they don't talk about the things that need to be talked about. Therefore, these kids don't see the reality of the dangers of it, you know?
So we're going to take a break right now. We're going to get right back into it about how you started a positive movement and absolutely started a couple of businesses for yourself as well. And we're going to get right back into it. But once again, you're listening to Slapp Radio right now. We got DJ Drama on the ones and twos. We got Mike and Apollo behind the lens. And we got Terann Pavao in the mix right now. Let's go. We're back on the Slapp Radio show. We got Terann Pavao in the mix. And last where we left off, you were talking about some of your positive movements that you got going on. So talk a little bit about some of your business ventures and then what you got going on and what can expect.
Okay, so for me, one of the things that I talk about a lot, especially when speaking to adults, is how I use that same hustle mentality that I had. Like, okay, so as a criminal, you and an addict, you figure out ways to do things, right? Whether it be crime, stealing, whether it be stealing a car, breaking into a business, you figure it out regardless. Because why? Because you want to get your dope, right? So I explain this to people. You have to use that same hustle mentality that you use to do whatever you do to get your dope, and you do it to make money. So for me, I realized, like, okay, what can I do to make money where I won't have to be worried about cops be pulling up behind me? I can pop my trunk and sell something to somebody without worrying about the cops surrounding me, you know? So I created a meal prep business, and on top of that, I love to cook. So I started off, you know, just asking people if they were interested, and it just kind of like blew up. You know, a lot of people are interested, and then the quality of the food is good. You know, I can cater to different needs of different people's health, you know, needs. So I did that. And then the vegan skincare, you know, because my skin, for example, is sensitive, I created that on my own skincare line. And then, I mean, I sell everything. I was doing like aerobics classes. You know, just everything that I can do to make money, I do it with that same mentality, like just whatever it takes, you know.
So you got the skincare, you got the meal preps, and you're speaking to the youth or whoever that you're able to speak to. And of course your goal is to speak to the masses. What else can we expect from you, Terann, here in the future? So
for me, I actually have to go back to prison to do some time. Actually on the 28th of this month, I'll be in Arizona federal prison. So I was contacted this past year and was told that I had to face consequences for charges almost 5 years ago. Okay. When I was still an active user, still in my addiction, still in the whole scene. And it was an unfortunate thing to me because, like I said before, me getting arrested before was a blessing, saving my life. This time I have everything to lose. I have all of these things going for me. I honestly feel like I just started living my life 4 years ago. You know, all this past 15 years in addiction, I was in a dark place. It was miserable. So now that I'm sober, now that I'm doing all these amazing things, then the law catches up to me, and it's honestly feeling like God's just testing my faith, you know. And I believe that the same thing I do out here with the kids, speaking to the kids and trying to make an impact on the kids in order for them to take a better path, maybe there's people in the prison that God needs me to meet. He needs me to meet some of the women that are about to come out, because I need to help them, you know, set them on a good track so that they're not gonna, you know what I mean? Like there's gotta be people that he needs me to speak to. There's a reason for him sending me there. And as much as it hurts, like, to be honest, like, to go back to prison, it hurts. This time it hurts. Like, it hurts so bad, you know, especially because I'm not the same person that I was.
Of course, because you were talking about earlier how you had nothing to lose.
Yep.
And now you have everything to lose.
It's so crazy, you know, like just thinking of having to start all over again. It's devastating. It's such a shitty feeling, you know. And then on top of that, I'm going to Arizona. I don't live in Arizona. I live in Hawaii. So my family can't see me. I'll be doing my time alone, you know, in a place where I know nobody. And it's just like, damn, like this is really a test of endurance and resilience and strength and faith. And there are many times I wanted to give up. Like, I'm gonna tell you this right now, if it was me, the person I was 5 years ago, I'd be like in California trying to cross the border to Tijuana right now, because I would be like, nah, catch me if you can, you know. But I'm standing accountable today. Like when I gotta go and check in and turn myself in, I do all of that. When I had to go to my sentencing, I do all of that. When I had to plead, I pled guilty, you know. I'm not running from them. I'm not trying to deny being guilty for my past actions, but it's unfortunate that it caught up to me after the fact, you know. But yeah, I'm just taking it as a leap of faith, you know. Maybe there's a plan and a purpose that's gonna fit into my testimony, you know.
Absolutely. How much time are you looking at doing?
So they gave me 30 months plus 3 years supervised release, so about 2.5 years in and 3 years out.
You have a going away party
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's shout out everybody that's helping you out right now.
My gosh, I'm so blessed to have so much people helping me. I mean, like everything from decorations to sounds to photo booths to food to entertainment. Like, oh my gosh, like it's crazy how people, when they heard I had a party, reached out to me and said, how can I help? What can I do? You know, and this kind of stuff would never happen to me in the life I used to live. And that's how I know, like, that's God's way of saying to me, just rest assured, Terann, you know, don't give up. I'm still right here with you, you know. And you might not have money and you might not be like, you know, rich or going, you know, it might not be easy right now, but I got you somehow, you know. I'm gonna send these people to help and pay for your food. I'm gonna send this person to help you with your decorations. I'm gonna send this people to help you with your entertainment, you know. Like, it's just, I look at all those little blessings as like God's reassurance, you know.
Absolutely. Terann, great to have you on the show right now.
I was blessed to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The crew, Slapp Radio, we're blessed to have you here on the show to speak your story, because you definitely are going to reach a lot of people. And how can people stay in touch with you while you're in?
They can write to me. I think I posted on my Instagram the address of the place I'm going. I'm actually going to the FCI Phoenix. It's satellite camp. It's in Phoenix, Arizona. It's a federal prison in there. I have my address on my Instagram. They can write me letters and stuff like that, or they can send me their email and we can email. What's
your email address and what's your?
Well, I don't have the email for in there.
Okay.
But they can write to me, and then once I get in and I have their email, I can contact them.
So you posted on your Instagram handle. What's your Instagram handle so people right now listening?
_Terann TERANN _B, the letter B _Stunton.
Ladies and gentlemen, Terann Pavao, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you a lot, and we're looking forward to you and your many endeavors when you come out and touching the many people that need to be touched and hear your story. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Terann Pavao.